The Christmas cafe was bright with laughter, music, and warm golden lights, but for Arman Halavai, it was wrapped in a strange, silent loneliness. Outside, snowflakes drifted softly through the pale afternoon sky, settling on the decorated windows like tiny stars. Inside, couples leaned close over steaming cups of coffee, exchanging smiles and quiet words. Arman sat alone at a small table near the window, his fingers resting around a mug that had long gone cold. To anyone passing by, he looked like a confident, successful man in his early 40s, tall, calm, dressed in a sharp charcoal coat. Few people knew he was the visionary CEO behind one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. And almost no one knew the deeper truth that shaped his life every single day. Arman could not hear a single sound in this cheerful room. Before the story continues, if you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, Whisper Tales 3. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that might need them today. The blind date had been arranged by a well-meaning colleague who believed Arman spent too much time buried in work and too little time in the world. At first, he had resisted the idea. Dating had never been simple for him. Being deaf often meant awkward introductions, confused expressions, and people who quickly decided the effort to communicate wasn't worth it. But something about the holiday season had softened his reluctance. Christmas had always stirred a quiet hope in him, a memory of warmth from childhood before life became so complicated. So he agreed, choosing this cozy cafe for the meeting and arriving early, hopeful but cautious. Time passed slowly. Arman checked his watch several times, then glanced toward the door whenever it opened. Each time, someone else stepped inside, laughing friends, couples brushing snow from their coats, a mother holding her child's hand. The woman he was supposed to meet never appeared. Eventually his phone buzzed with a message. The screen lit up with a short, painfully simple explanation. She had discovered that he was deaf and decided it might be too difficult. She wished him a nice Christmas and apologized for the inconvenience. Arman stared at the message for a long moment. Rejection was not new to him, but it never became easier. He set the phone down slowly, letting out a quiet breath. Around him, the cafe continued glowing with festive joy, yet the warmth felt distant, like a celebration happening behind thick glass. For a moment, he considered leaving. After all, he had built an empire from persistence and logic. He was not the type of man who lingered in places where he clearly did not belong. But something held him there. Perhaps it was the falling snow outside, or the memory of every lonely holiday he had worked through without complaint. So he remained seated, watching the world through the window, feeling both successful and strangely invisible. Arman's journey to success had never been easy. Losing his hearing at the age of 9 after a sudden illness had turned his childhood upside down. School became a battlefield of misunderstandings, and friendships often dissolved under the weight of communication barriers. Yet the silence also sharpened his focus. While others talked, he observed. While others doubted, he worked. Over the years, he mastered technology not just as a career but as a bridge, a way to connect people who felt unheard. By his mid-30s, his company had revolutionized accessibility software, transforming lives for millions of people around the world. Ironically, the man who helped so many feel connected often ended his own evenings alone. The door of the cafe opened again, letting in a swirl of cold winter air and two small figures bundled in colorful scarves. They were twin girls, perhaps 7 or 8 years old, their cheeks rosy from the cold and their eyes sparkling with curiosity. They scanned the room, whispering to each other, until their gaze landed on Arman. For a brief moment, they simply studied him with open, thoughtful expressions, as children sometimes do when they notice something adults overlook. Then, without hesitation, they walked straight toward his table. Arman looked up, surprised. The girls stopped in front of him and exchanged a quick glance, as if confirming a silent plan. Then one of them raised her hands and began to move them gently in the air. The motion was clear, graceful, and unmistakable. She was using sign language. Her small fingers formed a simple question, her eyes hopeful and bright. "Can we join you?" For a second, Arman felt as though the entire world had shifted. In a room where he could not hear the music or laughter, someone had suddenly spoken directly into his language. Warmth rushed through his chest, unexpected and powerful. A smile spread slowly across his face as he nodded and gestured for them to sit. The twins slid into the chairs across from him, their excitement impossible to hide. They introduced themselves with quick, playful signs, Nadia and Mira, explaining that they had been learning sign language because their cousin was deaf. When they saw Arman sitting alone, they recognized the quiet familiarity in his posture. Soon the table that had felt painfully empty was filled with animated hands and bright expressions. The twins told him about their school play, their favorite Christmas cookies, and how they loved practicing signs with anyone who would join them. Arman responded with patient gestures and occasional laughter that showed in the crinkle around his eyes. Though he could not hear the café's music, the moment carried its own rhythm, a gentle, joyful conversation unfolding in silence. Other customers began to notice, watching with quiet smiles as the three communicated in their shared language. After a while, a woman approached the table, her expression both apologetic and touched. She was the twins' mother, Elira. She had been watching from across the room, surprised to see her daughters confidently signing with a stranger. Arman stood politely and introduced himself through gestures and written notes on his phone. As Elira read his name and recognized the company he had built, her eyes widened with admiration. But more than his success, what moved her was the genuine happiness on her daughters' faces as they continued signing eagerly beside him. The afternoon that had begun with rejection slowly transformed into something brighter. What started as a lonely Christmas blind date became an unexpected moment of connection, kindness, and shared humanity. Arman realized that the silence he had carried for so many years did not have to mean isolation. Sometimes it simply meant waiting for the right people to speak the same language of empathy. And on that snowy Christmas afternoon, two fearless little girls had done exactly that. Before we reach the ending, if this story has touched your heart even a little, please support it by liking, sharing, and leaving a comment. Stories of kindness grow stronger when people choose to spread them. Special request: comment the word hope below if you believe even the smallest act of kindness can change someone's entire day. As the snow outside thickened into a soft white blanket, Arman looked around the cafe once more. The loneliness that had once surrounded him was gone, replaced by something warm and quietly powerful. Nadia and Mira continued signing excitedly, and their mother joined the conversation, eager to learn more. In that simple, beautiful moment, Arman understood that life's most meaningful connections rarely arrive the way we expect. Sometimes they appear after rejection, after disappointment, and after long years of silence, walking straight toward you with small hands raised in kindness. And when they do, they remind you that even in the quietest life, the heart can still hear miracles.